Hi, everybody. Just wanted to say hi, and it won't be starting until till 2 Eastern Standard Time, but myself and Marcia will be back in just a minute. And questions, things you want to talk to us directly about, we can do that.
I also tried to take a little pee break here. Okay, so we've got the screen up.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're live.
Well, there's no reason why we couldn't answer some questions. We're thrilled that you're here, and we know you're setting aside time to meet this requirement. So does anyone have something they want to put in the chat? Oh, I guess we could open it up for audio to save ourselves typing back and forth. We will be answering a lot of your questions in the training, but you might come to us with something that's unclear. We're glad you're here. And we will be starting in about 10 minutes. Could someone put in the chat, are all of you trying to meet an October 30th deadline? There's a rolling deadline with NTD, and we don't have information about that. So could you just chat yes if that's your date, or are you trying to get it by the end of the year? I don't quite know how urgent everyone is. I'm thrilled that you're going to get started, but we want to make certain we meet your deadline. Do you even know what your deadlines are? I don't know how all of that works. I know you've been motivated to get here.
Can be different for everybody.
Well, it's based on the end date of their fiscal reporting.
Correct.
Welcome, everyone. Anyone with a burning question? Everyone can hear me? Do you need to call in? Anyone having trouble with audio? Seeing the screen that you have in front of you?
I think they're good. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Oh, no audio.
No audio. Thank
Problems.
you for
That's
letting
good.
us know. We are hoping that you have your Excel file open. This is going to be a hands-on, type as you go training so that you can make significant progress at the end of the hour. So if you need a minute, go grab that file. You'll be hearing me suggest which cell, and you're going to see the cell in front of you. And then you're going to say, oh, I know my phone number. I guess I'm going to put it in the phone number cell called agency phone number. So this, that's our intention for this training, that it isn't just someone talking at you the whole time, but we're going to jump in and show you on the screen which cells to be looking for. Might be a little bit tough if you've got it on your Zoom screen and maybe a different monitor that you're typing into.
Maybe you guys could chat us if you successfully were able to download Google Earth Pro and GTFS Builder, because those are, and hopefully you have a Google account, because you would need that as well.
Yeah, for the My Maps, the Google account allows you to edit the map, create and edit the map.
It's different than Google Maps. This is My Maps. You tailor it and show on that map what you want to show. Mostly bus stops.
And I think I see a few people that are logged in twice. You might decide to have a version of Zoom on the phone,
Well, it could
and
be.
then the version of Zoom on the screen, or leave your screen open so that you can do some typing. That works too.
I use My Maps a lot for vacation planning.
Yes.
I see someone was only able to download Google Earth. I can send you the link to GTFS Builder, and you can download it. It's very
Fantastic, Nancy. Thank you for that.
You'll find it right in the banner, right where there's a picture of trees. It says GTFS Builder, and it says download GTFS Builder.
Well, welcome everyone. We're gaining a few more interested attendees. We're thrilled that you're here. Our focus is to help you create your GTFS. For you to report to NTD, you need a GTFS. So we can't jump the line and just, report something you don't have. You're going to be creating data that represents your agency, and it's data that you have. It will not be difficult once you wrap your head around which box you're going to be putting
put into a
information.
certain way that Google and other trip planners want to see it.
Some people have expressed that they already had a GTFS, and there is a way to import that GTFS into this toolkit. We're not focusing on that today. We're really helping individuals who've not touched it. And if you need some help with the import function, it's in the Notes tab, and it should be self-explanatory. It tells you to unzip the text file or bring it in from another Excel file. I'm unable to see the ribbon for the builder.
So if you go to that link that I posted, and it says GTFS Builder Support, if you click on that, you should see the download radio buttons, if you will, right at the top of the web page. I hope that helps.
Well, you can
actually show.
Step out of.
Yeah, there you go. See that? That's where it is.
So it can be on the support page or any of the links related to GTFS Builder right here.
Yeah.
So these are all really good questions. We don't need you to get frustrated joining us and accessing the files that you need. And you will extract all. You'll unzip the file so that you see the data behind the zipper, and you're saving that to your computer somewhere and not, in the cloud somewhere that you can't find it. Make sure, or we highly recommend that you keep it on your PC.
Let's make a little plug for office hours. Right next to the download button that Marcy was showing you, right next to it, there's a link to what we call office hours, like you would have had in college, right? That you go to the professor's office and get some individual help. So on Thursday afternoons at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Marcy is available on a Zoom link for free. You don't have to register. You just click on the link, and she'll be there to answer any technical questions you have. And if you have like really advanced questions, even during this webinar, it would be best to hold off and talk to her about those tomorrow at 1, and you'll get some one-on-one attention.
Great reminder, Nancy, because not everyone is at the same place in their learning.
Right. Whether you have a really beginning question or an advanced question, that's a good place to go. But we'll answer as many questions as we can today going forward. I'm not sure, there's still someone who's not seeing the builder. Is the link not working for you?
The builder is a zipped file that includes a guidebook. It includes an Excel and another Excel that are blank and 2 Excel that have some sample data. That's the builder. The builder is Excel files.
We want them to start with the one that's not the sample for today. Is that right?
Correct. The blank file.
Yeah, we did not send, I don't believe Marcy, did you send the builder to folks that pre-registered? Or did you give them a link?
I did. I tried to have them receive it as an attachment to their
the email
details, but if we missed it, we can absolutely have you go in here and download GTFS Builder.
Would it be challenging for you to download it right now?
Well, I have to sign up for it, so,
Is that not a good thing to do where you're
No, I think it's fine, but I don't know if it's distracting in the last 2 minutes before we start the webinar. In case
Okay,
I type
all
something
right.
wrong and it
That's all right. You know
let
what?
me
This webinar is recorded. If you don't end up filling in your own GTFS builder cells today, it's fine. You'll be able to watch this webinar probably within a few days. It'll be posted on our website, and then you can kind of follow along.
Well, the other piece is for people who want to learn at their pace, we have videos,
Yeah,
and we're going to mention this, but you can take this in little chunks and
Yeah.
work through each piece at your timeline
Yeah.
using our how-to videos.
right.
So whoever was having some difficulty with the download, you'll get my email at the end of this session, and you could email me saying, I'm still having trouble, and we'll make sure that we transport it to you however we can. We haven't had too much difficulty where a email might peel off the file, but it is possible that a security system at your agency has removed an attachment. So try to use the download that we just talked about and unzip the file.
Sorry. I should have grabbed a smaller cup.
All right, all.
All right, one more minute. Start
So
right at
anything
2.
else frustrating our number one learners here today? I see GTFS, 3 steps to planning. Nancy, can you notice anything else that would help this person?
Not right now. I think we probably should
Okay.
get started. It's 2 o'clock. So
Okay.
I think we're
Very
going to do
good.
that. So welcome everyone to the first of a series of 3 GTFS workshops. I'm Nancy Doherty, and I manage the tech tools here at Transaction Associates, which is National Rural Transit Assistance Program. This is a hands-on training, as we've been discussing, and we're hoping at this point, at least most of you have your computer set up and GTFS Builder downloaded and ready to go. So today, we hope to demystify the conversion of schedules or timetables and bus stop locations into the standardized, digitized format we call the General Transit Feed Specification. As many of you are probably well aware, FTA now requires that a GTFS file must be included in your National Transit Database report, NTD report, if you offer a fixed or deviated fixed route that's federally funded. We assume this is why many of you are here today. We're here to help you meet this requirement, and also, hopefully you'll use this data to publish to a trip planner, so your riders will be very grateful as well. I want to also mention that in session 2 and 3, we will be hearing from Joe Eldridge from the National Transit Database Operations Center. Next week, he'll provide an overview of who needs to generate a feed for their report and how to enter it in the report. And then in session 3, he'll dig a little bit deeper, covering best practices, common errors they find in the GTFEs, and how to keep your data current. I hope you all enjoy this training, and I look forward to seeing you all here next week, same day, same time. So going on to the next slide. Just a little bit about National RTAP. I won't talk too much about this, but we are a technical assistance center funded by the Federal Transit Administration through the Section 5311 program for rural areas. We provide no-cost training, for instance, this webinar, and technical assistance on a variety of topics for rural and state RTAP programs. We're guided by a review board made up of half DOT and half transit providers that help us provide and learn what priority topics we need to work on. They're basically our boots on the ground. So everything we offer can be found on our website, nationalrtap.org, and you can also reach out to us with any questions. We may not know the answer, but we will definitely connect you with someone who does. Sometimes the wide range of services we offer can be overwhelming, so we break it out into these basic categories. We're well known for our training materials, all kinds of information on rural and tribal information through technical briefs, best practices, and toolkits. We offer a bi-weekly e-newsletter full of great information and links and information about what's going on with FTA and the transit world in general. We have different technology tools to help with procurement, cost allocation, website design, and of course, trip planning through the GTFS builder that we're talking about today. And of course, we offer conferences and roundtables, which allow folks from all over the country to network. At the end of this training, we will go over a few up-and-coming events, including our national conference in Austin, Texas, yay, in December 2025. So we really want this training to help you gain the skills and confidence you need to develop your own GTFS feed. Don't hesitate to chat us a question. But as I mentioned just before we started the webinar, for really individual attention and more advanced questions, come to our weekly office hours on Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll put the link in the chat in just a minute. A quick introduction to Marcy Jaffe. She's our instructor today. She supports rural and tribal and intercity transit partners with technical assistance related to the General Transit Feed Specification, GTFS, and National RTAP's GTFS Builder. She has worked at the Washington State Department of Transportation, San Francisco's Regional Planning Agency, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and the Quileute Tribe. And I do want to just very quickly mention that before we begin, I'd like to point out that we are talking about web tools that include Google Earth and Google Maps, but that doesn't necessarily represent an endorsement of the tool. So at this point, I am going to turn it back over to Marcy.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And we'd like you to have a roadmap for our 3 sessions. Today, we're going to explain why we need a GTFS and how to set up your system to be successful, begin some data entry, and explain how to do some mapping of the stops if you don't already have it. Weeks 2 and 3, we're going to build out the rest of the GTFS. It's a database, and we're going to that next step with the schedules and the routes as trip groups. And we're going to hint at that today, and then have our NTD expert explain to you how to bring in your web link when you're ready with a valid file. Week 3 goes a little deeper, some more optional items, and really pulls it together. So we're looking forward to having you join us for all 3 sessions. As Nancy mentioned, I have some people say, well, I didn't really hear the word deviated before, but anyone who has a fixed or deviated fixed route will need to generate a P50, entering your GTFS link that we will help you to create today and move forward. And let's see what it means to have a GTFS. And from our perspective, we're here not just to help you be successful with the reporting, but also allow riders to plan trips. So from the Ho Tribal Center down to the Amanda Park trading post, this is roughly a 50-minute driving trip. You can see that in here. And on the bus, it's 57 minutes. Well, I don't know how many people can drive for 50 minutes for free, but our transit system is not charging a fare. And so Apple Maps on the left, Google Maps on the right. We're excited that with this amount of effort that you're going to put in, this is what riders can see. So effort, where did it come from? Where is a GTFS data element? And today we're going to answer and enter these pieces in the orange and in the pink. And we're going to start working towards stops. But in that trip plan, as you look through the details, you can see that the data didn't magically appear on the map. It's data that you can control. And if you need to make edits to the data, that will also allow you to correct and keep it up to date. And your NTD reporting also needs to be an up-to-date representation of your data. We have allowing you to think about, because some people have moved toward real-time GTFS and they're reporting whether the buses got a service alert and it's snowing, or they can't run that bus at the end of the day. That's real time. In order for GTFS to represent whether you're running late or early, you need the static or scheduled GTFS, which is what you're reporting to NTD, and that's what we're preparing today. A third flavor or type of GTFS is called Flex. It's been adopted as a specification, and it would say we have a service area. We go within our reservation boundaries, or we have 10 miles from the center of town. And the Flex GTFS is not yet being consumed or displayed at Apple Maps or Google Maps. Transit app does display it, but there might be a fee. So we're going to focus on what we need to do for NTD, but we'd like you to be aware of what else is available. So we start out in step 1 today. We're going to figure out the fill-in agency calendars, some basics. We're going to start mapping, then let you finish the mapping before next week for at least one route. And then next week, we'll also start putting those schedules together so that we can generate a GTFS. Let's take it down a notch. What does trip planning data look like? We're going to be filling in data like this to create GTFS. It's a name, it's a type, it's a code for an agency. This is all data that you have or you will create. And these are numbers that we go by putting a pin on a map and capturing it and putting it into the Excel spreadsheet. We know this is the most difficult concept for GTFS. And we'd like to just plant the seed for you to be thinking through your data and what kind of variations that you have. We're calling it trip groups. And a route may have multiple trip groups. So a trip group might be the morning and evening commute hours. A trip group might differ in the midday. So that is one route with at least 2 trip groups. If you operate on a Saturday, that's not your regular Monday through Friday service, that's a trip group. If you only operate a special trip for schools, and that's on Wednesdays, a school tripper, that's a trip group. So this data rolls up into a route. It's varied in a trip group by service days, and a trip group has bus stops in stop order. No blanks, no footnotes, no see over here. They are a way of representing your data so that the rider doesn't have to read about a footnote. It's within the trip group representation. And the direction of travel will create the trip group, inbound, outbound, or you could create it as a loop. And then once you have a trip group, you can assign a shape ID to it. This is the hardest concept, but if we keep reminding you how to think about it, it will get easier. So in this trip group for this route, where the route stays the same, the trip group is going to have a different name because service ID is different. But these columns for direction, they're both going in the same direction of Quinault. They have the same stops in stop order. The time points are the same. The times are a little different on Saturday. Saturday creates a second trip group for GTFS. In this particular case, there's no variation. We've just not decided to go to those bus stops at the end of the route. It can't be a blank in the middle of a trip group, but you can omit stops at the beginning or the end as long as all the other stops are staying in stop order, no blanks, consecutive order. We just want to spin through a few resources so that you know you have them. The support page for National RTAP includes a series of videos. They're about 10, 15 minutes each. You can slow them down, watch them again, and they give you the confidence, again, that you can fill this data in. There might be a little nugget that makes your data different, and you would look it up, listen to it in our video, or look it up in the guidebook. And the guidebook is detailed with sample data in the notes section for each of the data elements. That should save you some time as well. We know how busy you are and that you get pulled away. It might be wise to look to the back of the guidebook where we have the checklist and start filling in. You will know that you've made progress and confirm what is your next step.
I just want to add that I just put in the support page for those of you that weren't here before the webinar started. I put the support page into the chat, so all those resources can be found at that link.
Thank you, Nancy. Perfect. So we've reminded you, because our Excel workbooks need to reference mapping, this lat long thing, we have to have Google Earth on the PC before you start trying to run any of the macros. So another thing we've mentioned is that someone in your IT department needs to authorize that you can run a script that wasn't written by Microsoft called a macro, and it will save you time in generating the data. So we have Google Earth on your machine. This link, I don't know if Nancy will have a chance to put it in the chat, but that is required. And the My Maps we'll be using a little later as well, and we'll remind you of that when we get there. So these are the pieces of the puzzle on your PC. And when you extract all or look at your file, you'll have the file that you're going to be entering your data in, and maybe you have a copy of the guidebook there as well, available electronically. And eventually we're going to be generating a feed folder, and in that feed folder is your GTFS. So we're making progress. This is our notes page. It's our navigation page for bringing the data together. And I'm going to jump from here to a live demonstration of the notes page by going to my Excel copy. And in my notes page, we want you to be aware that if you get confused, you don't have your guidebook, your data goes a little deeper, beyond some of the basics that we're explaining. When you click on a link, it goes right to that page for the specification, and you can slide down and read through how does a phone number get organized, or whatever the question is that you need a little more detail.
Marcy, this notes tab is in the import export file of GTFS Builder. That's where you would find it.
Correct.
Okay.
So your main page on the left, Notes tab, is explaining the navigation for each of the tabs that will build your GTFS. Thank you, Nancy. That's very helpful. So we have more details below on generating the stop times and trips once we have some additional data. But we've got to fill in, and that's what we're going to start doing now. We're going to fill in the tabs for our agency. And I told myself I would make some of these white so you don't have to watch me type. But the agency ID is a code. It could be ABC or CTS, or in this case, JTA is a familiar way of representing this agency to the agency. It's an internal code. You might decide to use your NTD ID for your agency ID. I don't always know the NTD ID, so I'm using JTA. So I'm hoping that you're starting to type into your Excel workbook in the agency tab. So for the next, what a surprise, we're going to be filling in the agency's name. And this is maybe not the official name that is on some government document in a deep office. This is what name the writer will see when they come to your website. So I don't mean to block it out. Just type in your agency name. You don't have to do DBA, just what that writer would know you to be. Next, we're going to grab our agency URL. Well, I don't like to type, so I'm going to come over to my website and copy and paste that detail into the link that's needed. It needs to be the full link. You can't just start typing jefferson.com or whoever. It's a valid link. Test it. Copy it again into another page and make sure that it's valid. In some cases, we even have a failed link for agency, and that's frustrating for the writer. Now, our next is called agency time zone. It would be wonderful if this was just EST, PST, what we know. They didn't make it that easy because we're going around the world with our GTFS. And so on the Notes tab, I did go a little fast there. On the Notes tab, we put together the the list of Eastern, Mountain, Arizona, Hawaii. So we need you to select from this list. You can type it in or just copy paste from this list into your Excel file. So did anybody have a meltdown that we have to do something a little less than familiar when it comes to our agency time zone?
Which
If
one
you
did
happen
you
to be West
copy?
Coast, you won the lottery because that's what this will be. Go ahead, Nancy.
Which column did you copy from?
excuse me, when we're in this page, we're copying America, Los Angeles, America, Chicago,
Okay.
America, Samoa.
Okay.
Is that what we were asking?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent question. Next, language. So the language would likely be EN for English. However, if your writers are going to be using Spanish, it could be ES. We'll just leave it at EN for English. You're not writing it out. That's the code. You can read about the code or just type in EN or ES. The phone number. This is the public facing phone number, not your particular desk. This is the main number for your agency. I don't always love 800 numbers because sometimes a cell phone or a phone out of area might get blocked. So I encourage you to make it the local number that everyone would understand. We have now two optional fields. One is the fair URL. If you have a special page that explains fairs, you would put it in there. Otherwise, you can leave it blank. And agency email would be like customer service at jeffersontransit.com. So optional there. I don't know that many people are sending emails from GTFS, but this is the public facing email. I'm ready to jump to the calendar tab. Nancy, are there any questions from anyone who had difficulty getting through our first?
Through the agency tab? No? No.
Okay,
We're
but don't
good.
hesitate. You can.
And hopefully people are feeling encouraged that this is really not that hard. It's just filling it in one tab at a time, one cell at a time. Although the bus stop stuff gets a little more interesting, but it's
More
doable.
interesting, but
Yeah.
but you can do it. We know you'll be successful. So, a service ID. I've been using the concept of Monday through Friday. So then my brain knows if it's only Wednesday service, it might be a W. You could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 and 7 is the weekend. You're making your decision about how to name a service ID. And what that means is that for Monday through Friday, we have only turned on, or we have turned on with a number 1, that yes, we're going to operate on those days. The days that we do not operate, does it make sense? We're now going to say, I do not operate on those days. It's a 0. Then we want to say, well, when is this in effect? What's the start date for this service? And we're not going to go back in time to the beginning of time or even a year ago when you started NTD reporting for this. It's now forward, and we're going to have an end date. And occasionally I have people end on Christmas Eve. If you do that, or New Year's Eve, you might find that you're going to get a warning, hey, your data's expiring. So I like to at least go over the end of the year.
Marcy, can I just jump in? We have a couple things I want to address in the chat.
Absolutely, please.
Folks, there's someone that's having difficulty with internet connection and all that. And yes, I thought I posted this, but the recording and the slides should be available within a week on the National RTAP website. The second question, okay, someone asked for access to the workbook. Again, the workbook you need to download from our website. I've put that in the chat a couple times now on the support page. And finally, someone did ask a technical question, which is service ID might be route name or number. So what's the best way to give it a service ID? I'm guessing it's
an excellent question. Yeah. We're going to assign this service ID to all the routes that operate Monday through Friday with the same holidays. So we're reusing the service ID for any route that might have weekday service. You do not specify the route with the service ID. You'd make yourself even more crazy because we're going to get to a next page which relates to holidays, and you'd have to assign every holiday to every route. So we're rolling it up. And Nancy, sometimes you say it more easily than I do.
No, it's good. But we do have another question on, with an error with the start date. They're getting an error when they're putting in the start date and the end date. And I'm wondering if you've changed the format the format of the start date and
No.
end date really needs to be in that.
Okay, the error is perhaps that Excel wants to believe you only organize data one certain way. So ignore that error. You're typing it in year, month, day. Just override or say
That's
ignore
okay.
error
Okay.
with that little pop-up that comes up. So these are really good questions. We're preparing the format that we need.
Okay.
And I'm going to have one more type of service in here, which would be the possibility that someone has holiday service where we roll back and don't go till 7 at night. We only run service till 6 at night or 4 in the afternoon on the day after Thanksgiving or some other holiday. So we can have the service ID types that we need. We're going to reuse them for all the different routes that they apply to. And Nancy, you'll let me know if there are more questions, but we are going to keep rolling here.
Yeah, and
And
yeah, just to reiterate, so those different service IDs can be applied, the first one, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that might apply to 5 different routes. You'll be using that same service ID for each of those routes. It's not specific to a route. It's just whenever you need it, that's the days that the route runs, you select that service ID in the tabs that are coming, in the data that we're filling in.
so because your service doesn't operate every day of the year, we need to represent holidays. So it's a service exception. And what we're going to use, just as Nancy said, was Monday through Friday and a day of the year that we don't have service, which just happened a few weeks ago, that Labor Day, we didn't have service, and it's an exception type 2. Well, Nancy's going to put into the chat if she can, or you can go to your notes tab. The link to holidays that we just looked at for the,
I will in a minute. I'm answering a question, but I will do that.
okay,
Yeah.
from the notes tab, where we found that time zone information, you will likely have many of these holidays, maybe not all, and you can just copy and then come over here to your calendar dates and paste that data into your file and save yourself some time. Now, Nancy asked me before this session, she said, well, what happens if you do operate on Veterans Day? Well, you come along and you delete that row. So is it making sense that you're controlling, you're not taking holidays and putting them on there, that you don't operate or do operate? You'll be making the adjustments. And here I happen to have one on there twice. It will warn you that you don't want duplicated data.
Okay, I just need to jump in. If our service runs 7 days a week, how would it be reflected on the service ID? Again, it would be the ones under Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then zeros under Saturday and Sunday, just like it's shown on row 2. I think that's exactly what you're asking, Alicia.
Well, it would be this, whoops. It would take this data and fill it in for the entire days of the week and then assign the start and end dates.
No, she's not, she only, 7 days a week, yes, I'm sorry.
7 days a week, I
Yeah,
heard
I'm sorry, I
daily.
missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you
Also.
could call that your daily service.
Yeah.
These are excellent questions. Let's make sure you're gaining your confidence and you can keep moving. And then on your calendar dates, depending on whether you're going to run a slightly different service on that daily because of a holiday, you will remove service. So let's say the day after Thanksgiving, we have less service, we have the holiday service. So we would, day after Thanksgiving, remove the regular service and type and include for that day the addition of holiday service. I typed incorrectly. We're going to add in holiday service on the day after Thanksgiving and remove the regular service. And that way we could roll back the trips that we have and only run the holiday service. Or maybe this would be a better example of Christmas Eve. So we could do Christmas Eve with a change of service. And again, if we have more questions about my specific service that doesn't make sense to you quite yet, we could talk about that on a Thursday session. And so unless Nancy, you've got a number of questions about this, can we
No, I'm
roll
still
forward?
working on downloading GTFS Builder. I think the problem that folks might be having is in that form, you really need to enter all of the fields. Your agency URL, your phone number, all that contact information. Because I was just doing it and I kept getting these red outlines of certain fields. And once I filled it all in, it downloaded just fine. I hope that helps.
Okay, Nancy, thank you. We do need to get you into the process, and we don't need to frustrate you. So we're now moving from calendar dates to the Roots tab, a peachy colored one. And let's say our route that we're going to be working on for this project is a route that is named JTOC for us in the know, and other people call it the Olympic Connection, the JTOC bus. And we're going to put that into this first tab. So JTOC is an internal code for us. It could be 1, it could be blue, it could be purple. We're filling in a way for us to reference what days of the week is that purple route going to go, and then what bus stops will it go to. So this is what the route ID does. The agency ID is something we just saw when we created it on that agency tab. You want to be mindful that it's the same lowercase and not just typing it in uppercase, because you know it could also be upper or lower. The route short name. A route short name is generally 5 or 6 characters. It's blue, orange, but if it's what we have here, what most riders would want to know for this bus stop, Olympic Connection, that's going to be a long name. So short name 123, 1001, whatever code that you think the rider might know when they go to your website. Oh, it's the blue route. You would fill that in here. A route description right now is not needed, so we encourage you to just leave that blank. And for route type, we have, in this case, it's a bus. If I needed to learn more about route type, maybe I'm a ferry, that's a number 4. If I'm a train or a streetcar, that might be a 0. I don't remember my route type. I need to look it up. You can look in the guidebook, or you can go to this notes tab and come here to routes and then look through whatever specific data element you're needing in order to get more information. A route URL is not a requirement. We encourage you to fill it in. It allows that rider, when they're planning a trip, when you see they'd like some more information about the trip and they've selected the trip and they want to learn more, information about the route is right there and jumps you right back to the place where you could read more on that route, or maybe make a copy of it, save it to your phone or computer.
Marcy, a couple more questions that you might
Please.
be able to help with. This person downloaded the import-export file and enabled editing, but it's a read-only document. Could that be a security thing on their computer, maybe?
Well, let's try saving that to their computer by, well, read-only can also be when you try to double-click and not unzip the entire zipped
unzip it.
file.
Okay.
So right-click and extract all would
Okay.
help you to activate or make sure that the Excel file is a full file and not just a viewing of it.
Right. And the second one, on the calendar tabs, is it a fiscal year or calendar year that we want to refer to?
It's any service period that you'd like. So
Calendar
you
year.
want to fill, this is not about fiscal reporting
Right.
for NTD. This is, and maybe I'd even want to go all the way to 2026. Why would I want this to end in a couple of months? So I'm setting the date here. This is not bounded by any reporting requirement. Does that make sense for everyone? This is operational data. We think our service is going to go for another year and a half. And then if services change, you'll come in and change them, but there will be an end date. And you definitely want to go beyond a couple of weeks or months. It will give you a little warning saying we need service beyond date, a few days
Okay.
into the future.
I think we have another question on calendar dates. If you're closed the third Friday of the month, would you enter each date individually?
I'm happy to explain that one. So you would have your weekly service, and then you would either you would be removing the other week 1, week 2, and week 4 with those specific dates.
Wouldn't
And then a number 2.
You
So
wouldn't
you're
have to put
only
in there,
operating the third Wednesday or Thursday of the month.
they're closed the third Friday of the month, so wouldn't they put in all 12 Fridays, one for each month, and say that they're not open or not running? So on
Well,
the
if they're not operating on Fridays, they could
No,
put a 0.
they are. 3 out of 4 Fridays, they're open, but there's one Friday a month that they're not.
Okay, so they'd have a special Friday service that they would represent
Ah, okay.
for that type, for that day, and then they would remove week 1, 2, and 4 and only operate this Friday that you're open. Excellent question. Do we think we've answered it now, Nancy? I may not have understood.
Let's see if
Well,
there's any more comments.
maybe they can think it through a little bit more, but yes, in calendar dates, you'd be removing the Fridays of the month that Friday service does not operate.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I hope that helps, Michelle.
Okay, brilliant. Smart questions. You're thinking. I'm so excited that we're actually entering data and not just watching Marcy move her mouth. Okay, I've now found that with root color, if I want to enter some data here, I go to my little paint can. And let's say it's going to be a certain green color, or I want a big fancy color. You might end up with your webmaster, and that might be you, to know what the HTML color code is. But if you come over here and grab a color from this thing, this pop-up on filling a cell, it will, because we don't want that. GTFS doesn't know that you've changed a background color. GTFS wants you to put in a color like a single quote with 00800. I grabbed it off of that pop-up. And if I decided that I wanted the words to be black, I can enter that as well. It's 6 Fs or 6 zeros. And I think in this case and then I got that warning that Excel doesn't like a bunch of zeros, but it is what we want. And we have a little single quote there so that we don't
Yeah.
lose zeros. And
That's
that's
hard to see,
good
but
as well.
you definitely have to type in that single quote just at the beginning, and then your text.
zeros won't disappear to 0.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so we have a root color and we have some text that contrasts the color. You will be deciding that you like the way that looks. We don't end up using this very much, the sort order continuous pickup, so that we will put on hold for now. The last, again, this shouldn't be very hard. We're going to be taking some of the information that we have from our agency tab. Some of you might know the word metadata. This is like Ghostbusters, who are you going to call? Feed info is who you're going to call if you have some difficulty with the GTFS and you'd like help. So it's highly likely it's going to be you. And to save yourself some time, just copy paste the publisher name, your agency, the publisher URL, your website. Oops, I don't know why I need to type this into here. The EN goes in the row with that data. And now our start and end dates will just represent what we have in our calendar. So this is just a pretty quick cut and paste. And for those of you who've ever said, gee, when was the last time that I worked on this file? You'll put a timestamp in here for feed version. You can create it any way that you want. So it's your internal code as to when you had an update to the data file. And the last would be your email so that someone can reach you if there's a question about the GTFS. I represent GTFS for almost 20 years now, and I've maybe had 5 or so contacts. So don't worry that someone is going to be reaching out to you hourly or daily with requests about GTFS. And I'm not quite sure why that was sitting there, but we're going to just fill in these boxes. Otherwise, the validator will say, hey, you got part of it. You're missing a few more. We've done it. These are
Hey,
quite
Marcy,
a few of the required elements. Go ahead, Nancy.
quick question on color. I think in the notes page, is there a link to all the hex or all the colors in the
There
notes
is.
page?
Yes, another
Notes
way
tab in the
to,
tab, sorry.
another way for you to gain the hex code, whoops, the
Hex
hex code,
codes are color codes.
the codes that we would use. You can come here to the color picker.
Which is on the National RTAP GTFS Builder Support page that I've put in the chat a number of times.
So here's our support page. We're scrolling down, we have videos, and then in a section here called additional resources, that same calendar dates that we were working with, and then that hex color picker is another way to go. And you can actually stick your mouse in there, copy paste, and bring that over. And so you're looking for a 6-digit code. If you're not getting 6 digits, it's not going to validate. So all good questions, Nancy. Would there be any others before we move on to the next section?
Not yet. Oh, wait a minute, wait a
Okay,
minute, wait a minute. Oh, I can't enable macros in GTFS Builder. I
you're going to
can't
need
save
to
the
work with
file
your
as a,
IT department. So this is an excellent question.
hold on, it's a little bit different, but can save the file as macro enabled, will that suffice?
Correct.
Yeah, so you should be fine. Okay, that's it.
Sometimes you save it to a trusted folder, and we do have a video that explains about macros and how you can, contain them somewhere on your computer so they're not just running around. And yes, you need to enable those macros. So all good questions. We're now going to spend a few minutes on mapping because how does a bus rider know where to stand? You can't just say the corner. There's a lot of places on an intersection that would be the corner. You know where to stand, and now you're going to help that rider with that same information on where to stand. We'd like you to look around. This is just a few examples. I'm not going to read you this list, but think about maybe sometime a while ago, we used to have a bus stop list with latitude and longitude, and we'll show you what decimal degrees includes. But there might be a planning office or someone. Let's start with data that you already have. It might save you some time. But from here forward, we're going to show you how to use My Maps or Google Earth to create pins that will go into the Excel file. And then between now and next week, you're going to put the pins for at least one route so we can clean up and create one GTFS for a route. You'll gain some confidence and you'll know how to fill out the rest of your GTFS builder files. So when we use My Maps, we're going to put a group of pins on the map. We're going to show you how to do that. Maybe you're sharing this with someone else. A lot of our transportation systems have remote offices, others that are expert on their region. And so using My Maps would be helpful there. With Google Earth, it's on your computer. You would send them a file that they would have to find on their Google Earth. So we highly recommend Google Maps, but it does require that you have a Google account. Now, if today you use your personal Gmail account or Google account, that's fine. If in the future you think it wouldn't be a bad idea if I save and organize this with a shared Google account for my agency, please do. And we actually have to make a pit stop at Google Earth on our way from Google My Maps because we needed to get organized and strip off some data that we don't need. So let's proceed to my mapping. unless Nancy, you have some other questions that you'd like answered at this point.
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Thank you. So if you go to google.com/mymaps, I'll type it in again. google.com/mymaps. Oh, no, it's the other way. mymaps.google.com. That's what the link is. mymaps.google.com. You will see maybe not this many maps, but you will see create a new map.
You have to
So
have a Google account. And I think
I am
actually,
logged into a Google account,
yeah,
and you cannot save or create a map if you do not have a Google account.
I think
So
just My Maps even works, right?
go for it. And create a
Yeah.
new map here so that we're all on the same blank page. And Nancy, I don't know if you can tell whether anybody is stuck on their way to the My Maps, but we want you to gain some confidence in the entire process. You will slow this down when I'm not nudging you forward. But once you're in My Maps, what we highly recommend is that you choose the aerial satellite imagery so that you can see the tree and the parking lot. But if you want another version of a map, you can choose that. And in this particular case, we're going to be building a few stops for that Jefferson Transit route. And we want to go to the Ho Indian Nation area of my map. So you're typing in your town, your tribal center, your city hall, your post office to get the map to not be quite so broad as national. Now that I'm in this area, and because this data is live, the bus stop exists. This is where riders are being picked up, and the pin, that icon on the map, exists because they are live at Google Maps. They have published their GTFS. If I want to create a pin for this agency, and this is a pin, which is a bus stop, I'm going to put, by choosing this teardrop onto the map, and this is going to be Ho Tribal Center. And I've created my bus stop. And do you see here, I know it might be very small, but on your screen it should be readable. This is what is latitude and longitude geocoding the bus stop location. Take a deep breath. You now have learned how to geocode and create bus stops. So we might want to create a few more bus stops for our agency. And I know that we're going to go all the way to the the trading post at Amanda Park. And often it will come to you that there's a match of data, and it may not exactly be the place that you want your bus stop, but it'll be close. So use your search function and create another bus stop of
Do
where
you,
it needs, where that rider needs to wait for the bus.
do you
And maybe I
actually,
should show you how much more precision you can put in here.
yeah, that's,
And that's what's the magic of all of this.
do you
Amanda
zoom
Park.
in a little bit so you can really see that you're on the sidewalk and you're not on the edge of the road? So you can make sure
Excellent
that
thought.
stop is really in the right place.
So in this case, the bus company is going to come in and then turn itself around and head out. If it was safe for the rider to be standing here along the road and the bus is going northbound, but this trading post, you could have bus stops here and bus stops there, anywhere. But if we want the rider to be successful, we're going to put it on the map in its precise location.
Right.
So I agree, Nancy. I was way too far out. I can't just put a pin in that area. I absolutely want my bus stop to be And I don't even know how much further I can go. I guess that, well, that's pretty darn close. I can see a truck's parked here and something else.
And this
So
really supports the argument for using the aerial view rather than just the more traditional map view that we use when we're, in our car or whatnot. Yeah, you want to be able to see
absolutely.
all the landmarks.
So the Claylock, Washington campground is another stop for this route. And and so from here, it's actually next to the campground at the lodge. We would zoom into the area and find, I'm gonna have to type in the lodge, Claylock Lodge. And in this case, we can see that pin as well. I'm double clicking on the map allows me to increase my zoom level or using the plus sign. And so I'm taking these pins, I'm putting them on the map and naming them. And if I didn't like the pin, I can delete it. And so we're now going to put this third pin right here on the map, Playlock.
And once it's on there, you can certainly, like, oh, no, it's on the other side of the street. You can easily move it over and the name stays the same, the coordinates just update. Yeah.
An excellent point, Nancy, because I might not come into this parking lot and I might have a secondary bus stop that is the northbound. And I need riders to know which side of the street. I do not want them running across Highway 101 trying to catch a bus because they didn't understand where the bus stop is. So you're going to be precise and you're going to be able to represent a northbound versus a southbound by having these pins separated in your data set. And
We
go
do have
ahead.
a question. If there is a subdivision that the transit drives through, can we just put the pin at the beginning of the subdivision? I think you want that pin exactly where you want the rider to meet the bus, wherever that is in the subdivision.
So an excellent question. You might decide to put maybe 2 pins. Gee, we go into the subdivision, and the idea that I like to think of is where is it safer for that operator to pull to the side and allow someone to get on the bus? Because you know where it's safer, and yes, you'll pick up anywhere. It might be that casual, but encouraging people to know where it's a little bit safer. Maybe there's a pullout by the park or something, but you don't have to put 50 pins for everybody's front door if you are flexible through that area.
And if you don't go into the subdivision, you expect the people to walk out to the kind of the intersection of the subdivision road and your main road, then you would put it just at the beginning, at the appropriate corner. Okay, so someone just said, I missed how to put in an aerial view, how to go back and forth between the different views. So base map, did you see that at the bottom of the menu there? You just go to base map and you pick that middle one. There we go.
Okay, fantastic. We will keep the Zoom open a little bit longer for those who do have additional questions. I realize I often get neglected to not name my map, so this is JTOC or, JTA 2024. This is going to be your name for your route. And maybe I'll rename this layer so I'll know what layer I'm on to this particular data set. Once I have a nice name for my data set, I can take, and we're now taking this information and bringing it over to the Excel. So I'm going to export the data from here. We decided the name for
Can
that.
you go back and do that again, just a little bit slower so everyone can follow?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have 3 dots
Yep.
at the top with the name of the overall file, and I'm exporting those 3 dots.
Export to KML.
Export, I choose export.
Yeah.
And then which do I want? I want the layer that was named JTOC, and I export it as KML and say download. And that set of stops will go right there into my GTFS builder file, or I save it where I'd like to find it. And then I can open that in Google Earth. And I literally don't need to spend too much time on this because we have a referencing between Google Earth where we can just copy what's there and bring it into our stop tab and double click.
Marcy, in terms of how you go from My Maps to Google Earth to this
Yep,
spreadsheet, can you just click right on the file, that new that file that you saved, the KML file, and will it open Google Earth for you?
yes,
So you can just click
yes,
on the file once you save it.
yep.
Okay.
So we'll do it one more
Yeah.
time. We're here at Google Earth.
Okay, so you've got the layer, it shows up.
It shows up, there's some pins that we just created. And we say copy, and we're copying the globe.
Do you have
And
to
we
right
come,
click on that to highlight it? That layer?
yes, we do have
Yep.
to select
Copy. Yeah.
copy. And we come over to the Excel, and only if your macros are enabled. If the macros are not yet working, this won't be functional. But we double click on the cell that's open, a blank cell, and we say okay.
Wait a minute.
And
What was the number there that showed up? So,
a number 4 was
okay, you don't have
paste.
to change that. 4 is correct. Yeah.
Or if a 3 is in there, you're going to put a number 4 in there. And
Okay.
now I'm moving that stop name information into the cell that we want, but latitude's where it needs to be and longitude is also where it needs to be.
There you go. So that's in
Now,
the stops tab.
we're in the stops tab
Yeah.
and we will be assigning a stop ID, and we can do that next week, or you can start working on it. So it might be that these are the stops in stop order. If you created your map, one second, if you created your map so that the stops are in the order that they go, it will save you some time over here in creating your route details.
And if they're not,
You can organize them here if you need to. Otherwise, a stop ID gets associated with whatever place you put it into the timetable, into the
you certainly
schedule.
copy and paste rows around. There's no
You don't
problem.
need to. You don't have to spend 100 hours trying to get the stops in stop order. But if you
Okay.
did create it that way, it might save you some time.
Okay, we have a quick question. If a system makes changes to its routes runs due to driver shortages, do we have to indicate that on the GTFS as the changes occur?
Well, if you're not live at Google Maps or Apple Maps, the NTD reporting is not hour by hour that you've modified your service. But if you will be live at Google Maps into the future, you would have maybe a holiday or a modified service, and you could turn that on. It generally takes 24 to 48 hours for that to be represented. So you could use a service alert that would say we're running fewer trips. And there are many companies that sell you that tool. You can, through Google Maps, publish a message, but this is a little bit beyond how do you get your basics in there. But GTFS can represent less service through service alerts and real-time updates.
And that's the value of having your own and owning your own GTFS feed, data and feed, so you can make those adjustments, right? And I just put the link to we have a video on everything Marcy just did on how to create your bus stop coordinates. So there's a video that you can stop and look at something more carefully and then restart it again. You might find it helpful. We had another question here. How did you paste the name and coordinates from Google Earth? Did you use paste special?
We used the number 4
It's a
because
macro. It's a little bit different than
the
just
macro, it's a script. So if your macros aren't working, that won't work.
Okay.
But we had to copy that globe, an excellent question. And when we come in here, the
Did you right
pop-up
click?
that comes up is paste points.
Did you right
Because
click, left
now
click?
it knows to organize it. Go ahead, Nancy, I'm
Is
sorry.
it right click, left click when you?
It's a double click.
It's a
It's a
double.
click. It's a click, click. Go into a blank row and
Double
then
click.
type in a 4 for paste points. And then, well, I don't have any more on there. The clipboard got emptied, but
Yeah.
it's It's that's a macro within here. And the other direction that these macros go, just in case you're curious, you can't really break anything, but if you double click within a row and you want to say, where is that bus stop? It's set up to bring you to Google Maps, not the My Maps that you were editing, but it will show you where you're putting that pin on the map.
That's cool.
And now in this case, when you look at it without the layer, you'd think you're in the middle of the road. And so it helps to turn on and off layers. That was a little more precision there. Go ahead, Nancy.
So if it shows it in the middle of the road in Google Maps, which one do you assume is correct?
The aerial photo.
Okay, good.
The aerial photo is where the rider will know to stand.
But
Or if they're being directed, maybe they have an assistive device and they're being directed to lat long. They will be going to the right location if you put your pin on the map accurately with an aerial photo.
Okay. Okay, let's see, a few more questions. Do we need to have the coordinates import from Google Earth? We already have coordinates for all our routes, but not on Google Earth.
This idea here was if you have your coordinates, put them into your Excel spreadsheet. Absolutely. You do not need to do all of these shenanigans if you have the data. But I would encourage you, and you can go the other direction from your from your Excel file, you could choose to view all of these stops, put them on Google Earth, and confirm that they're accurate, or put them on Google Maps, Google My Maps, and view that they're accurate. Because I've seen some people inherit data that was absolutely the right data, and what Nancy and others were asking about, it was showing that they were in the road. And we want to be able to clean that up a bit. So Nancy, I'm going to head toward closing up today's session in terms of those who might need to leave by noon and make sure everyone knows they've got some homework. This idea that you're going to go in and finish off any tabs, maybe you had some trouble getting into the file and downloading and whatever, but fill out these basic file elements that we have, put those bus stops on My Maps or gather the data that you have, organize it the way you want, and work on your checklist. And if you're ambitious and you want to go a little further, you can watch a video and start moving yourself further down the line so that in our training next week, you're ready to validate one or more than one route and be ready to submit to NTD. This is the process. We're now going next week, work on the schedules and timetables as well.
Couple questions already. What is the maximum number of stops allowed in GTFS Builder?
I haven't hit it. We have 1,500 stops with 45 routes, and they've been live for about 12 years using GTFS Builder.
It's as many rows as Excel accepts?
Probably, yeah.
40,000, I don't know, big number. Question for this, our transit program needs to have a web page, right? That's true if you're going to publish to a trip planner, especially with Google, not necessarily for NTD. I don't know if NTD.
Well, Nancy, though, that first cell in or second cell in the GTFS is what is your website?
And that's a required element for if you're not trip planning, if you're for NTD only?
I don't know for sure, but maybe even a Facebook page. I think you need something. It's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think well, especially if you, as Nancy said, if you will be publishing, you absolutely have a web page, but you could maybe just have a sheet on the web that says, this is my timetable. It doesn't have to be fancy. This is my timetable. This is when I have a holiday. And find a way to get that onto the internet. I think that would be wise.
Okay.
But we have resources at National RTAP. We'll help you build a website. You basically just say, this is my name, my phone number, and a few other things. And we'll make sure you have a website within, a day or a couple hours. And you just pay the fee that gets a name for your agency. So these are really good questions. Keep going, Nancy. Any more?
We will get this video or this recording up as soon as we can, but everything we've covered today is covered in that list of videos that's on our support page. So if I don't get this up till Monday, you can go to the videos that are Marcy's showing you right now. And it'll take you through it step by step in the same order that Marcy just went through it today. Are fixed routes a great ideal to start from,
You will absolutely work on your fixed routes. Yes.
or deviated fixed? If we're
Just
talking
start
about-
with your fixed routes first.
Okay, so we haven't done the tackle slide. We'll just, so I've answered as many questions as we have time for. Maybe after we kind of end, if people do want to stay on for a little bit, Marcy, if you have time.
Absolutely.
We'll try to help you out as best as we can. So Tackle is, National RTAP right now is the leader of the Technical Assistance Coordination Library, provides sustainable methodology and platform for information on rural and tribal coordination. It contains information from the FDA and all its technical assistance centers, and you'll find Tackle at transportation-tackle.org. So it's a great resource. These are the events that are coming up. Hopefully you'll join us. There's a lot of good things coming up in November, including even in January, a book club where we'll be discussing a book called The Lost Ticket. Anyone can join that. It's a lot of fun, and we all get to network and meet each other around the country. But we've got succession planning and the marketing toolkit coming up in November and then January. And then I'm going to make a little plug for, even though it's I don't know, 14 months away. We've got the Technical Assistance Conference. It's our 6th one, so we're really good at it at this point. In Austin, Texas, and that's December 7th through 12th. So put that on your calendar and try not to plan anything else for those days. And then finally, reach out to, I think probably Robin, who's our executive director, or Marcy for any help. Take a screenshot. If I were you, I'd take a screenshot of Marcy's email right there, because she can help you directly with that email. And then finally, when I close this down, well, that's the problem if we stay on a little bit longer. But as soon as I shut this down, or as soon as you leave the website, I believe, the survey will pop up. And we just ask you questions like, what did you think? And what do you want us to talk about next week? That will be helpful. So it'd be really helpful if you could complete that survey quickly. It'll also be in a follow-up email. So if you miss it, don't worry too much about it. So I think that's about it from my end. If there's some folks that want to stay on, I'll try to enable it so that maybe you can actually talk to us for a little bit.
With voice and not just texting or chatting, because it's a little tough to follow if we didn't answer a question the way you'd like.
Maybe raise your hand. I'm
acceptable.
not exactly sure I know how to allow everybody to talk at the same time, but if you raise your hand.
Oh, raise your hand is a good one, yes.
I can allow you to talk, so that's probably the best way to do it. Covered a lot of material today, Marcy.
Well, everyone was attentive and engaged. I really appreciate that. I know you're going to nail this. It's not impossible. It just takes a little bit of time
Yeah.
And what I often say is you do need to shut your door for a few minutes, because it's hard to be distracted with all the other crises that you have to deal with and muscle through pieces of this. But many of you may already have some of the data somewhere. You might have an Excel spreadsheet with those stop locations or your timetable that we're going to be using next week.
So
grab that, make sure it's available. It'll save you some effort next time.
yeah, so Amy Hill has a question for us. Amy, you should be able to talk.
Yes, I just had a question that, a lot of times it is, we have directors such as myself that are wearing many hats and trying to do a lot of different things. But this seems like it's something that more than one person within our agency needs to know how to do, correct? Because I always tell everybody, there's no guarantee that we're going to be here a week from now, tomorrow, whatever. But this is something that is pretty complex. So what do you suggest is a starting point for somebody that has no experience with mapping to get kind of experience?
Well, that's an excellent question, Amy. I think often your dispatchers have gut level understanding of all of this. If they could be let loose with a map and they go, gosh, I always tell people to stand at this intersection, but they're standing over here because that's what they hear me say. If they start putting those pins on the map, that will save you a lot of time. And if you're in remote locations, the My Maps could be shared. I guess I didn't show that, and I can show that right now, that you share the map by um, allowing someone to have access to it amongst your group as an editor. And
Cool.
then the mapping piece is not too complicated. These other pieces, the reason we're using Excel is that someone could watch the video for 5 or 10 minutes and become more confident that they could make the edits. So I don't always know who else beside dispatch, but sometimes there's a young bus operator, because older people might be a little afraid of computers, but a younger person might say, I've done this before. I really like this sort of thing. I can organize this data once you show me a hint of what to do, and they could be your um, leader on this kind of project. Does
So,
that help,
yeah.
me, or other thoughts there?
Yeah, that does help because our dispatchers do have the ability to see our buses. We have uh, GPS locators, so we can see them moving around and about. So I think that would be a good step. That would be a good connect to try to get them more involved in this process as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. And Amy, if you do have that AVL, or anybody else that has the AVL available, they might be able to generate a GTFS. You want to look it over, but somehow if they're moving those buses and you're watching that on the panel, they are stopping at various bus stops. What I sometimes notice is that on the AVL, they'll put the pin in the road, which is where the bus is, but that's not where the rider would be standing. So we just need to be able to pick that pin up and move it to its safer location if somehow it was in the road, as opposed, this is where the bus might be stopping as it's going north, when in fact we want the stop out of the road. I might
So
have
I,
made
I
that more
like I like
complicated.
the idea of having one person maybe who would know identifying the bus stops, and then maybe someone like the transit manager or someone a little higher up, maybe working on some of the other tabs that Marcy was talking about, the agency ID, the routes, the count, really familiar with the schedule for all the different routes. But getting the mapping done, getting those map coordinates done that would be so helpful if you can assign that to somebody else.
Yeah,
And
I
I think
appreciate
that
it.
part's kind of fun. Anyone else? Any other? Oh, Courtney. Courtney, you're finally getting to talk. I'm sorry. I know you had a lot of questions. Um, you should be, just unmute yourself, and I think you should be all set.
I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
We're
I
good.
can. Yes.
I'm sorry, I do have plenty of questions.
Good.
Kind of a disclaimer. Our agent um had a waiver for the last reporting season, so we are slow coming into this. We have just kind of been a little bit out of the loop with data. We previously had a ITS system, and then when we got new buses, that provider went out of service for fixed route, and so we did not have a carrier over the last couple of years as we were preparing to do a route study for on-time performance and microtransit and a bunch of other things that we were kind of gonna wait to rebid that vendor out to. That got pushed behind. So just a series of things in which we have not procured a new provider, right? So that project has finally gone back out to bid. But in saying that, we when we lost that provider, we begged and begged and begged for our GTFS data that they once had, and they never provided it. Mean, they were acquired by one company after another, and it was awful. It was awful. So we never got that data. And so we basically kind of went to zero on that. And this was, of course, before this requirement existed. But we're pretty much at zero. And so in creating this, I will say that we have We do have some mobile tracking software on our buses through our camera system that we are going to be utilizing to help our consultants with the on-time performance part of it for the rerouting. And so I don't know if that is something that would help us in this, but I'm just trying to figure out how much of this is going to be purely by hand, complete research, complete filling in, and how much of this we could gain from things that maybe we could pull from other sources. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this because we don't have a whole lot of people who are in a position where they are really super computer savvy. And so again, kind of similar to the lady before, where as wearing the director hat, we kind of have to do 100 things, and this kind of will fall into that hat. And I do have a grant manager, but also she's doing a lot of other things as well. But this is a lot of programming and data entry, and just trying to think of the best way to even get ahead of it for
Okay,
reporting.
well, Courtney, let's try to dig out as best we can. You can use some mobile software. What I think I mentioned is sometimes that will show the bus in the middle of the road. You'll need to still move that bus stop over to the side of the road, so that's where the safer location is. There's a tiny chance somebody has that GTFS. Were you ever live at Google Maps through all that shenanigans years ago?
I don't know if we were ever
Go,
live.
go try to plan a trip. If that exists, we could probably help you get your GTFS out of Google.
Okay.
So, we got to look at it from all angles.
Okay.
And there's also a website called Transit Land, where in some cases, and we will talk about the speed registry, and it is a funny little URL, but type in transit.land, they might have your GTFS, even if it's old, they don't kick it off.
Well,
So
reroute in years, so it would be the same data,
yeah.
all getting ready to go through a reroute.
So I do have some other questions about NTD, and I'm going to ask that we wait for NTD's responsibilities to be answered by our expert from NTD. We know how to get you through the door with an quality, valid GTFS. In terms of your waiver and when it's due and what if you have this and that, I really need the experts at FTA and their representatives of NTD analysts to answer those questions. So we'll capture them. We'll make sure that our NTD expert has them so that they are answered when they meet with us next week. If it's a deeper dive, they might need to answer it on the third session, but your questions are certainly valid, and we will do our best to get you, well, we know we can get you the GTFS file, so not to worry there. In terms of tech support, yeah, it is a little frustrating, and somebody put in the chat that the IT department may have to get involved to confirm that your computer inside of a trusted folder will allow the macros to be run. I don't have any other way to make the macros more officially acceptable, but most agencies, once they explain this is federally funded and we show them the website where it came from, that these macros are can be run just safely within one folder on your computer and not a problem.
RC, someone actually asked, I don't know if you saw this, are the macros digitally signed? I don't know if you know what that is. I'm not sure I do.
Yeah, well, it's that the IT department will come in and say, we don't know where this came from.
Gotcha.
So we don't have a way of making them any more digitally signed. Well, you've all been extremely smart and capable, and questions that are ones we will be able to answer over these next few sessions. This is new territory for many of you. If you had been finished with it, you wouldn't be here. So we really honor you that it might not be what you expected, but it is data that you can manage. Did you gain some confidence today? Can you pat yourself on the back and say, I was able to take data that I didn't know where it went, put it into this Excel spreadsheet, and we're about, 30, 40% of the way toward a GTFS. Once you start putting those bus stops in there, you go exponentially faster down the path of, gathering the data that you need. And if you can build your one route between next week and the week after, you'll be able to build out the rest of them. So I'm thrilled for your questions, and I will be available tomorrow. I really appreciate your encouragement. It's not easy for us to take all of this and squish it into an hour. You've been very, very attentive. So we'll see you next week. Unless somebody else wants to speak up, you're welcome. We can stay a few more minutes.
Or, yeah, I think people are starting to leave. I love this comment, though. This was a great webinar. It's way scarier to look at it at your own. That's what we're here for. That's what National RTAP's all about. And thankfully, we have Marcy to help. So I think, so thank you, everybody. We really appreciate your time. And we'll see you next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, same link.